Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Kaz and I'm a channeler and a healer. In today's video we are asking the question, what does the Earth's Flora want to tell you? I am going to have 3 piles to choose from here. We are also going to do some collective messages and I'll use the rosebud for that. The 3 groups are this one here, and I actually don't know what this is called. We're in winter here and there's not a lot flowering in the garden at the moment. So there's that lovely green bush with some little purpley pink flowers on it. I have the Alyssum, a white Alyssum. Don't know if that's going to show up very well. And we have some mint as well. This is actually pineapple mint. So I'm going to do the collective messages first and then I'll move on to the group messages. The timestamps will be in the description and also in the video chapters. So I'll see you there. I'm going to pick up the rosebud to do some channeling from the Earth's Flora for every one of us. Let's see what we get. Oh, okay. The first thing they're saying is thank you for your acknowledgement. Thank you for acknowledging that we are part of the Earth's ecosystem. And we would like to tell you that we are very important. Some people dismiss us, and there has been a lot of clearing of the land, and they acknowledge that it's quite distressing to the Earth's flora because many species are being lost. So throughout the world, because there is a big sudden push for housing and development, a lot of land is being cleared, a lot of species are being lost. Now the Earth holds the energy of those species, but they will be lost for future generations. There are some steps underway to prevent this loss, but in some places people are being pressured to ignore the loss. So they ask us to be mindful in our own areas about what is precious and to identify those sorts of things so that it can be reported. And they're asking us to actually identify different plants and species that it may not be known that they're in that area, and that will prevent decimation in the future if it's recorded somewhere. So your local, I don't even know what, governing body of flora, I don't even know what that would be called. You can report that you take photos and report to them that you've seen this species in a certain area. They encourage all of us to get outside and start really looking at plants. And they're bringing me back to a message I got a while ago about you can get the flower essences from the actual plant without having to cut the flower off. I'll try to remember what video that was in and link it to this one. I'm not quite, it was some time ago. Maybe I'll do a face-to-face video on that because it was quite interesting. So they're talking about bathing in plants. They're asking us to go into the bush or into the forest or into the brush or whatever you happen to have around you, the natural habitat. Maybe it's jungle, and get into it and just bathe in the plants that are meant to be in that place. They don't dismiss that we have relocated species and put them in different places and even in our own gardens, and they appreciate that because it is perpetuate that plant and that plant species. But there is also, they're concentrated more on the native species that are being lost in localized areas. So they want us to become familiar with what's in our local area and what's native to that area, and to help preserve those plants. And now they're talking about insects, because insects generationally, remember that insect life isn't that long. So, what we may see in 10 years of our lives might be 100 generations in their lives, maybe 1,000. So what insects do is they carry on that knowledge through the DNA about which plants are best for food sources and which plants are best for shelter. And this is really vitally important. And as we are clearing land and decimating plant species, we're also decimating the insect species as well. And it's not just bees, it's all insects. And I know some people think, great, I don't like creepy crawlies, but it is really important to the Earth's ecosystem to have insects. And once we start decimating areas, it creates an imbalance. And so what we see is more invasive insects and more of the pesky ones rather than the ones that help balance the ecosystem. It's a little bit like gut flora. When you've got one species dominating, it causes all sorts of problems. So that's something to bear in mind. They are really connected, obviously, to the fairy realm, and they work very closely with the fairy realm. And they want us to give offerings to the fairy realm as well. So what would they like to see? Are they just like little altars? So maybe you'll put 3 crystals outside for the fairy realm, or build a little area in your garden for the fairy realm. They just like to be acknowledged that they are working with the Earth's flora to provide a balanced ecosystem for all the people and all the beings on the Earth. And they in turn work with Mother Nature and Mother Earth too. And it's a finely tuned machine is what I want to say. But man's coming through and absolutely creating havoc with this finely tuned machine. And it's not just happening with the Earth's flora, it's happening in the oceans, in all the water bodies as well. There's a lot going on that we perhaps are ignorant of, and in the next 25 years it's going to start becoming very obvious, because what will happen is, and I'm picturing primates here, so monkeys and gorillas, something's going to be happening to them, and they will track it back to a loss of some sort of species or something that it wasn't well known that they fed on, but it's almost like they might feed on at a certain time of the year, and that provides them enough nutrients for the rest of the year in some form or another. It might be a trace mineral or something like that. And it's going to start affecting animals in a big way, and then it will start affecting humans. Now, it is already affecting humans, but we're passing it off as other stuff. And we're not acknowledging that the way things are being run at the moment with large agriculture and soil depletion and land clearing is actually affecting what we put into our body as food. So they just want us to be aware of that. And they're saying this isn't meant to be a scare tactic here. This message isn't to generate fear, it's to generate awareness and consciousness when you are out in nature, of being aware of what's going on. So if you're a regular walker out in nature, you'll see the seasons change and the plants respond to that. And if you've been doing that for many years, you might have already noticed some changes that are happening. And they just want people to be aware that some species are going to have to be preserved by mankind for the good of the planet. And they're not giving me anything in particular. It's almost like it's going to have to be a bit of exploration, a bit of research, a bit of trial and error to find what really does need to be preserved. And I know there are already some projects like this going on, but they want all of us to join in. And for us as caretakers of the land, because we don't actually own the land, we're caretakers, to be respectful of those coming behind us, because now they're showing me AstroTurf. We're generating all these ways to make our lives easier, but it's so damaging to the soil and the ecosystem. And they just want us to be aware of that. They're not telling anyone off. It's about awareness. Okay, so that's all I have for the group messages. I hope next time you go into your local area for a walk, you start to notice the native species. We are going to move on to group 1. I'll see you at your reading. Group 1, welcome to your reading. I'm just going to pick up your lovely little branch here. It's not even a branch. Okay, what would they like to tell you? They're talking about a soul group here. They're talking about a soul group that's got a strong affinity to the planet and the earth. And they're talking about you being the eco-warriors. So it may be that even if you're not doing it now in a major way, you may take up the fight for plants in the future and a fight for the ecosystem and the planetary ecosystem. And they're saying it doesn't have to be a fight as in weapons and conflict. They're saying a fight for rights more than anything else. And the rights of plants. Wow, there's a lot of energy behind that because I just had a bit of a coughing fit with that. The right for plants, and it does make my throat chakra go off a bit. So, okay, it's because plants haven't had much of a say in what happens to them. We just, as humans, we just see them as something that decorates our environment or gets in our way or is a bit of a pain and can't be controlled. So the message here is that plants are, first of all, they're alive and they're living beings and they have a soul essence. And our interaction with those plants that we enjoy or destroy, they're talking about, will eventually become karma. So that's interesting. And they're talking about people's personal affinity to certain plants. So if you talk to a gardener or someone who loves flowers, they usually have a favourite flower or a favourite plant. And there's almost like a soul connection between the person and the plant. So let's just say that someone loves roses. They're really connected in energetically to roses. And that might be they like the scent, they like the formation of it, they like how it grows, they like the different colours. And there is a soul connection to that plant, and it might have been that in the past that person was that plant. Now we're getting really metaphysical here because we all can be either plant, mineral or animal in our evolutionary progress as a soul. I don't want to get too deeply into that here because I do have that in a video somewhere. But it may be that you might have incarnated with that particular plant, as that particular plant, and to experience how it feels to be a plant. And that's part of what your soul wanted to experience. And it may have been a millennia ago, but it was still there. And roses perhaps haven't been around that long, so that's probably not a good example. But I'm just giving you the basic tenets of what's going on here. So it may be that you're really connected with that, or it may be that an ancestor really loved that plant, and so you loved that plant because that energy of love for that plant is in your DNA. I feel like there's going to be, particularly in this group, a lot more of you who are already gardeners or growing into being a gardener. Some people don't start too much later, and I'm an example of that. I loved gardens, but I was never interested in gardening until about 7 or 8 years ago. So it may be that if you've got absolutely no interest in plants at this time, in the future you may have. And there's that very strong connection to the fairy realm as well here. but it's almost like you are going to fight for plants in your area. And again, I'm not getting in an aggressive way. It could be, well, let's go through this local bush area here and pick up all the rubbish. That's fighting for the plants in that area. Or let's ask the council to put in pathways so people aren't trampling on delicate little seedlings as they're walking through the bush. Things like that. It doesn't have to be on a major scale. It can be in your local area. But you already have a natural affinity and natural awareness for plants, and they really appreciate that about you. So when you bring fresh flowers into your home, thank them for being there. Thank them for giving their lives to brighten yours. Because essentially once they are cut, that's what happens. And please don't ever feel guilty or bad about that, because that is part of their job as well. And they know their life cycle, and they know what they've come here to do. And if it's to attract insects and be fed off, they understand that. If it's to look pretty and then be cut and put in vases, they understand that. They would just like the acknowledgement and the thanks for being in your lives. And perhaps we're not as good as that as perhaps our long ago ancestors were, because they lived in it, whereas we don't. We live in our houses and we're not as connected as we used to be. Oh, that was really interesting. Thank you, Group 1, for coming to this. And I'm going to thank these lovely flowers that I cut to be part of this reading. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Group 2, you chose the Alyssum. I'm just going to pick it up so I can get some messages for it. We can't quite see it so well. I'm just going to see if I can get it to focus. No. There we go, maybe. Okay, what messages have I got here? You might have a little bit of an eco-warrior spirit already, and you are really appreciative of plants. You may be vegetarian and vegan and have a lot of plants in your diet, which is great. I'm actually seeing people growing their own veggies as well, so that may be you. If you're not doing that now, it might be something you'd like to try in the future. Now, they do want to talk about food sources and vegetables and fruits, and talk about commercial growing and how it's getting quite a way away from what is natural. And they're showing me an orange, and they're showing me a natural orange and a hybridized orange. Oh, okay. This is something I learned many years ago when I was a naturopath, and there was a study done on oranges from the 1950s and oranges from today. And there is something like 10 times more vitamin C in the oranges from the 1950s than there are in oranges today. And there's a lot more sugar in oranges today. So you need a lot more oranges to get the same amount of vitamin C than you did in the 1950s. So they're talking about how nutrients are being diluted in food and how certain nutrients are being excluded from food by hybridization and by farming practices. It's not just hybridization. So they just want you to be aware of that if you are planting a garden for food, so fruit trees and vegetables, things like that. I don't know why I want to say more there, but that's all I can think of. Vegetables and fruit. Oh, nuts, nut trees as well. They want you to be aware, first of all, to plant obviously what will thrive in your area, but also to plant things that are close to how they were naturally, because of they want preservation of that species, but also because the food produced by those plants will be more beneficial to you than things that have been developed lately by people in laboratories. So, and I'm saying people are in laboratories, but what I'm actually seeing is propagators and people making things that are more pest resistant and things like that. So even though they're more pest resistant, something has to give. So let's just say there's tomatoes that are more resistant to fungus. But in order to make it more resistant to fungus, another part of the fruit's properties need to go. So let's just say it loses some vitamin C to make it more fungus resistant. So they want people to maybe look at heritage species and growing those over some of the newer species. They said it doesn't mean you have to exclude the newer species, but maybe have both. Maybe have both growing in your garden so that you are getting the nutrients that you really need as a human from the heritage species, and you're getting the joy of growing maybe from the newer species because they're a little bit hardier. And they're saying a little bit goes a long way. So let's say that you've got a crop of tomatoes and the heritage species is more prone to a certain insect. You will still get some tomatoes from it. You might not get a great big crop. So those, let's just say 6 tomatoes you get from that plant instead of 20 tomatoes you get from the other plant are still going to be so nutrient dense that they're going to make up for the shortcomings of the other tomatoes. Now this is just an example, and it's probably not completely accurate from a scientific point of view, but I'm just trying to translate what they're giving to me as far as food and how things have changed. And a lot of this change has happened in the last 100 years. So if your grandmother gave you a cutting from a plant that was in her garden, that's probably the original species of that plant, and that would be something that's worth growing. Yeah, and they talk about heritage seeds and trying to get the natural seeds. Now, in some places and in some countries, you can't always get those, so just do the best that you can with that. And now they're talking about supermarket, and particularly again tomatoes, supermarket tomatoes, and trying to grow things from seed from that. It's almost like you're getting a diluted tomato is what they're telling me. And they're almost saying it's not worth eating. Like you're eating a tomato, yes, but you're not getting the characteristics that that tomato should have. Same for cucumbers, same for carrots, all that sort of thing. So they want you to look at the best possible source for seeds and seedlings that you can get if you're growing your own food. Now, for those of you not growing your own food and you've listened to this and you thought, what the heck? The message here is look at what food you are putting into your body. Did nature create it? Was it made by nature, or is it man-made? There may be some people here campaigning for vegetables not to be wrapped in plastic, and a lot of supermarkets do like to do that. If that really bothers you, go to your independent fruit and veggie sellers, because they don't tend to do that. Or go to farmers markets, because you won't see that there. I find that a real issue, and I don't like it personally. And there may be others here who feel the same way. And use your purchasing power is what I'm hearing. So if a certain seller is doing something you don't like with fruit and vegetables or food in general, don't spend your money there. It may be cheaper, but the long-term cost to your health is something else. So look at buying quality over quantity as well when it comes to food, because if we are giving ourselves the nutrients we need from the food we're consuming, we need less food because our needs are being met. And they want us to really think about that. Okay, group 2. I hope you enjoyed that message from your plant here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Group 3, welcome to your reading. I'm just going to pick up your mint here so I can channel the messages. Now I'm getting something about balance here. So it may be that you are vegetarian or vegan, or that you have been in the past and you've gone back to regular eating, or it might be that sometimes in your life you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and at other times you ignore plants altogether as part of your diet. So we are looking at what's going into the body here or what's triggering it. There may be some intolerances here, so maybe you have problems with pollen in springtime, maybe you have problems with salicylates or the nightshade family. There's something here about finding a balance with the plants that you live with. I feel that if you've been looking for a solution for some time, there is a solution coming, but it's a matter of trial and error, it's a matter of research. I'm getting amines as well here, so histamine, amines. There might have been that you've been struggling with this for quite some time and you're trying to find a balance on how to live in the best possible way with plants in your life as far as ingesting them or living around them. And there is a solution. I feel like there is a solution for this issue. And it is plant-based, so it's not like you have to ignore certain foods in your life forever. There is going to be a solution for you. And I'm being drawn to like YouTube itself and how a lot of people have a lot of solutions for a lot of things. And they're saying start exploring that realm, because if it's not available yet, it will eventually be available. There's a lot of very clever people out there doing very clever things, or even channeling the information in and then experimenting on themselves and then sharing it. I, for instance, have an issue with salicylates and amines, and I've had to manage that particularly in the last 5 years. So there are people that I've come across that have certainly helped me with that. And so I suggest that you start doing some research and not think that this is it for you. This is all you can do. Now, if you don't relate to any of that, it may be that you're missing some symptoms, that perhaps something is triggering with you. So let's say that you have a runny nose constantly, or that you wake up with a really dry mouth because you've been snoring all night. And they're saying, and it's not always food related, but I'm just saying it might be something you're ingesting or that's around you in your environment that's causing you to do that. And because we are talking about plants, it may be plant-based. Oh, for some of you, it's just simply not having enough fresh air in your house. Maybe it's really, really, really hot, or maybe it's really, really, really cold at the moment. There's just not fresh air circulating. Okay. That was a bit of a sidebar there, so let's go back to what we were saying here. Gosh, it's like I'm not getting any more messages about that. So maybe you as a group do relate to this. Maybe it's not you. Okay, so if you can't relate to this, maybe there's someone around you that's going through this and none of you have realised that that's what's happening. So maybe you've got a child that has a few issues that are really vague and the doctors don't know what it is and nobody seems to have an answer for you. It might be because it's being triggered by some sort of plant. And I'm not saying that all plants are bad. What I'm saying is sometimes they're covered in pesticides, and so it might be that that's triggering something in your children. So you might need to look at eliminating plants that possibly could have pesticides on them and going for organic produce or growing your own produce. What I'm actually seeing as well is like a kind of homesteading type environment where people are really going back to basics here, and if they are making bread, they're milling their own flour and even growing their own wheat to make flour. Now, wheat is one of those things that has been highly hybridised, so that might be options that people do, or growing their own spelt or amaranth and making flour from that, and preserving things that you grow in your own garden, and really getting back to basics with how we as human function with natural food and food that is grown in an environment that's not mass produced, that's not just trying to get the highest yield for the less amount of money. Doing it for the love of it and putting the love into the growth of the plants as well. It's a really lovely feeling, this, actually. It's really lovely. So if you're not interested in anything like that at the moment, you may be in the future. So just bear that in mind. You might start wanting to look at things. I feel like this will happen naturally if you're going to go that way. And we're going to see more of a movement that way globally, where people are a lot more interested in producing their own food and a lot more interested in caring for plants instead of just having them as decoration. Because let's face it, anyone can have plants in their house or their workspace. But if they're not putting nurturing into those plants, they won't live long. You know those people that go into offices and look after the plants, whereas the people in the office don't look after the plants, but they're getting the benefit of the plants? It's almost like there's a real imbalance between giving and receiving with the plants here. Maybe you have a wonderful garden, but you've got gardeners that look after your garden. What they want you to do is go out and connect with the plants in your garden. Even if you're not doing the hard labour, maybe you're not physically able to, but they're saying have that connection with the plants because it would be really beneficial to you and your family. Teach your kids to have connection with plants as well. It'll be really beneficial to them. There's so much balance that can be gained from being around plants. Okay, that's all I have for you, Group 3. I hope you enjoyed that reading, and I'll see you in my next one.